All right. Also, we had a conversation briefly on our social media about generational wealth. I don't know how we segue from that, but I mean, it's a conversation that I think that we should have because we've been finding it difficult to have that conversation in public circles as of late.
I was just on the social media page and I was going to leave a comment because this is a conversation that I am very fascinated to hear responses of.
Yeah. So there was a video that was posted. The video was from 2021. Tiffany Cross interviewed the mayor of Tulsa, Oklahoma, who she ran it back. There was a report that came out in the newspaper. A journalist tracked the mayor's history back to like when they fucking got off the ships and shit.
Bynum family, I'm sure you know, enslaved nearly 1,000 people. And you inherited that wealth from the family, where the African Americans here in the community had their wealth taken from them. So when you say no cash payouts, I think people look at it and say, well, wow, you inherited wealth, you inherited your position in life because of enslaving people who look like me. How do you reconcile saying, yeah, but that was then, and we don't owe you anything for that now?
Because you're asking me about reparations for an event that was a criminal act 100 years ago.
Right, but something that your family benefited from, the system of enslavement, of systemic racism. So can you imagine how the descendants of the enslaved look at your position in life compared to their own, and hear you say, well, no, cash payouts make people uncomfortable? I assume you mean the white people of Tulsa, and people who...
Can you not realize how you had your family, that generational wealth that was built, gives you an advantage over black people, right? Because I think the conversation specifically was revolving around reparations and his inclination not to do any sort of thing for black people in Tulsa when it comes to reparations. So the question came to me was, okay, reparations is one way, but we also, I mean, let's keep it all the way funky. The hill for reparations is going to be a long and arduous fight, whether we get it or not.
Sure.
What other ways are we trying to build generational wealth? And honestly, what does generational wealth look like for Black Americans now? Because I think there's certain concepts that come to mind when we start talking about generational wealth, and not everyone shares the same concept.
I don't subscribe to the notion of generational wealth being a possibility for Black people. I don't think I think a select few Black people will ever have generational wealth. And that's a very small segment of Black America who will ever have generational wealth.
Okay,
and I think the fair part would
stop for a quick second, okay? And I apologize. I think before you go into that, describe to the listeners, to our viewers, what generational wealth looks like to you.
Oh, okay.
Because when I go through the comments, like I said, it doesn't seem as though everyone has the same perception.
And I think generational wealth would be generations, I would say at least 3 generations, right, would be financially and economically well off, right? Free. At least 3 generations would be in a place where financially they wanted for nothing. There was no struggle there. They had the ability to sustain their livelihoods as families for 3 generations. And I don't think that's something that Black people, the overwhelming majority of us, will ever experience. I mean, and I don't think it's go ahead.
We're talking about the kind of wealth where the members of the family are not only free of economic hardship, they're also free to do with that money what they will. So endowments, research, philanthropy, quote unquote. And these things further ingrain that generational wealth aspect. Because not only does the wealth stay within when it's I think this kind of money is not contained within the familial structure. They actually become part of their local economies.
I am someone who has supported Black businesses for years, right? I've gone through, the Farrakhan stage of supporting Black businesses, the Dr. Claude Anderson stage of supporting Black businesses, all these different stages to the point where, hey, I just want to buy Black because I want to make other Black people happy is where I am now, right? Not on this idea that somehow, some way, if we pool our resources together, that we would be able to climb our way out of oppression. I think once we begin to actually have honest conversations and look at data, right? Look at the numbers, look at the current state of Black America financially. By the year 2053, Black folks will be, overwhelming majority of us will be way below the poverty line. When you look at Black businesses today, the overwhelming majority of Black businesses today have less than one employee. So we're not even able to sustain another family with our Black businesses. And I don't want anyone to say, well, Elgin, you're being overly pessimistic out there, and we should be trying. I think you should be putting things in place for your family to be financially comfortable, right? And if there's something that happens where you actually are able to do something, whether you hit the lottery or something along those lines, where you're able to build generational wealth, I don't think you can build it. I think there's two ways of getting it. I think you, like white folks, you are given generational wealth through inheritance like white people have, or you actually have to step on and oppress other people in order to get generational wealth like white people have. There's no way that you are going to come together with a bunch of other Black folks to build generational wealth. We as a people just do not have the money to do that. And anytime that we have done it, look at what it has taken place.
I think part of the biggest problem, honestly, is that we have an outlook that generational wealth, the end all be all, is with us, the current generation, right? Not thinking that generational wealth takes generations to establish, to build, to build a momentum to create. Because it's not about necessarily you or your children per se. It's about your children's children and their children's children and so on. Are we having the appropriate conversations though? Because color me ignorant, but I just feel like, are we taking those baby steps necessary without the anticipation that it's going to turn into something fruitful for us, right? And
I don't think we are. No. I think the reason why is, and it's not, I don't even want to blame us for that, right? I don't want to blame Black folks for being poor in any shape or form, right? Because I think when we look at the propaganda that we're continually subjected to, all we know currently is Black girl magic, Black excellence. We're constantly pushed with this narrative that if we just work hard, we can get it out the mud. And we're constantly given these extreme examples of people who are breaking the billionaire barrier. So they'll hype up a Jay-Z and a Beyonce. They'll hype up a Diddy. But what they often neglect is the early stages of these cats, how they got that money, who gave them the loans, what illegal activity they had to do to get there. Not only that, but who they had to leave behind in the past and who they had to step on to get to that billionaire. But when your young people are giving nothing more than that as the way out of their oppression,
the dream. That's all we're getting is the
dream. I can't get mad at folks. I can't get mad at the drill rappers. I don't like it and I think it's horrible, but I dig it. I dig thinking that if I just work hard and get this last pack, and if I can just sell this last pack and get this demo out, I can make it. And I want to tell our people that's not the state of where we are economically.
One of the folks in our group said, wealth is currently modeled after a Euro capitalist concept. I'm trying to invest in my children being self-sufficient, mentally / emotionally / financially healthy, all caps. The old world thinking of wealth has kept us shackled and grinding in the rat race or losing our shirts in the latest get-rich schemes. Black folks, quote unquote, black folks have been disproportionately harmed by crypto investment.
And crypto is trash.
Crypto is complete nonsense.
Said fix your concept of wealth and then invest in being healthy. So that is this gentleman's concept of what generational wealth looks like, passing on mental health along with these.
And I think that's part of
tips or whatever.
So I don't want to shit on the homie's viewpoint, right? I dig it. I think that's an area that we do need to strive and work for. Definitely. But also the other side of it, and I know he's aware of this, motherfuckers ain't eating off of a healthy mindset. Like being healthy mentally and emotionally ain't putting food on the table. It's not paying the bills. And again, this is not a pushback because I understand what he's saying. And knowing this brother, I know his thought process is more expansive than what that little clip or that little thread just showed. But I think that mentality, the mentality that we have now is so pervasive. We don't have a communal mindset anymore. We have
outside of the communal mindset, are we actually having conversations with our children to try and help them to avoid?
I don't
know, man.
But I can only go off the circle that I travel in.
I dig it.
But I can also go to the circle of the school that I work in, so I can say, yes, I'm doing it, but no, these other motherfuckers are not doing it.
Because you know what? Because I told you I had not too long ago. I sat as I've been trying to navigate this financial landmines that we're dealing with now, right? You know, I jump into my investments. I try to invest as much as possible into my 401k. I have my life insurance just in case for all of these things to happen to try and give my kids a leg up. I said, but okay, even if I leave them something behind, am I teaching them how to manage that after the fact? Because we know tons of people that they get a bag and they blow the bag.
Yeah, see, like these other people aren't just leaving these kids just inheritances. You know, one or two of those kids, you know, watch their dad run that business, or even ran that business, a summer or two, you know, before he passed away. And chances are, in our black households, our fathers don't have time to teach them the trade, or even if I mean, like, do they have the space in their life to really have that level of nepotism, or are they going to hire the most efficient worker right there in the spot who's going to take this money and get to work? I mean, the dynamics are very different for a black business versus a white business.
No, you're right. It's a struggle, man. But like I think ultimately we should be. I hope we are having these conversations and trying to lay down the small building blocks, not the big shit. We know we can't always be trying to go for the home run, right? Just laying these small. That's what we said. These small building blocks.
That's what like for the 80s, right?
For example, check this out. So I was talking to my
middle class.
I was talking to my kids the other day, and I was telling them, I said, okay, I added them. I have a credit card, and I added my kids as authorized users to my credit card.
Right.
And the cards came in, and I told my son, he helps me check the mail. And he was like, Dad, I have a letter here for me. I said, oh, no. That's not for you, buddy. Pass that over here. It was the credit card because I added him as an authorized user. The purpose of that
to what benefit? Go ahead.
Okay. So the purpose of that is when you add your child as an authorized user to your credit, it helps them to establish a line of credit earlier than what they normally would have by the time they become older. So for example, I add my son now as an authorized user. I make sure that whenever the bills come, I pay them off. I continue to do that for however many years until he becomes of age. So the next time when he wants to actually go buy a car or rent an apartment, he's already established good credit from the time he was fucking 12 years old, right?
Yeah.
And that helps him to be able to avoid I need a co-signer, or I got to live in a particular area, or I've got to get a particular car because I haven't established that. You know what I'm saying?
I want to give you kudos for doing that. I think that's very wise financially. But I also want to acknowledge just how fucked up that is, right? It's fucked up that you have to begin at such a young age with your child to not only plan for his future, but his children's future. And I say it's fucked up because Black and brown people specifically, and can't forget our indigenous folks who are still being oppressed in some of the worst fucking ways, right? But it's heartbreaking that we have to do that when Tommy and Karen literally are worried about going on a fucking ski trip tomorrow. But we're literally scraping, and you're working a full-time job, 4 different fucking hustles on the side, right? Just to equate another side job in order for you to be able to pay off a credit card, which we know is not fiscally healthy, right? In order for your children to be fucking successful. But